Hello, welcome to the HOTH XII Intro to Svelte workshop. We're going to be going over what is Svelte, how to install it, some basics things you can do in Svelte, and we're going to be making a simple cookie clicker project. So hopefully by the end of this tutorial, you'll be able to understand what Svelte is, and you'll be able to have it on your computer and be able to comfortably make a project out of it for this hackathon. And I'll guide you step by step into how you can get there. So first of all, Svelte is a tool for building web applications. It allows you to combine your markup, styles, and behaviors. And just a disclaimer, if you haven't seen the HTML, JS, CSS, and JS workshop, you can find that on our website, and I would strongly recommend watching that before this tutorial. And if you already know what it is, you'll understand that usually in vanilla HTML, CSS, JS, you'll have separate files for each of them. But using frameworks like Svelte, you're able to make your code a lot cleaner and easier to debug by combining all of those different files into one single file. And I will demonstrate an example later in this tutorial. But first, we're going to be installing Svelte. So let's assume we all have a compiler. I like to use VS Code. So we're going to go open a new folder. I just made a new empty folder on my desktop. It's called HOTH. So we're going to click into this empty folder. If you don't have a folder, just make a folder for where you want to store your code. And we're going to be in the terminal. First thing you want to do is make sure you have Node.js installed. So to check if you have it installed, you're going to type into the terminal node v. So we're going to see what version we're on. So I already have it installed, but if you don't have it installed and you get anything else other than this, you should first install Node. So to do that, you're going to go to your browser, search up Node installation. So here you can download Node.js. I'm using Mac, so you can download for Mac, and there's also Linux and Windows. So after you install Node on your computer, we're going to go back here, and you're going to check again if you have Node installed. And after you install it, it should give you the version number. That means you have it installed. So the next step is to do this. You don't have to understand what these mean. Simply type them into your terminal and you'll have a Svelte project. Okay, and now it's going to prompt you for your project name. I'll just use a default name. Okay, this is the important part. It's going to ask you to choose a framework. And because we're using Svelte, we're going to use the arrow keys to navigate to Svelte and press enter. And we're going to be using TypeScript in this tutorial, but if you are comfortable with something else, you can also use JS or SvelteKit, which is for your backend. Okay, so now it's going to tell you what to do. It says to cd into your project name, so I named it the default Vite project, so I'll just copy and paste this here. Okay, now we're in this folder. We're going to press npm install, so this is going to install everything. And we just have to wait for all the dependencies to install. Okay. And then it will say npm run dev. This is quite important, and I would recommend remembering this because this is going to help you run and test your project in your browser. So this is how you're able to look at your progress in real time. So I'm going to copy this link. This is going to be a local link, so it will only work on your computer. I'm going to open my browser and paste this link. And you can see this is my first Svelte project. So this is just their default driver code. So to see all of this built in code, you just have to open your folder, open your project, go to src, and then go into app.svelte. So this is where your driver code would be. So as you can see, this is v plus svelte. So if I say hoth XII, press Command S, and you'll see it being updated here. And because this is just the default code, we don't need any of this, so we can delete it all. So now it should be an empty screen. Okay, so now that we have Svelte installed, we're going to look at something very important in Svelte. It's called components. So a component is a reusable, self-contained block of code that encapsulates your HTML, CSS, JS so that they belong together into one file. And we can look at an example here. So let's say I want to have use TypeScript. So instead of making a new .ts file, oh, I can't have this space here. We're simply going to make a script tag, give it the language, and put all of our scripts in here. So first, let's declare a variable and initialize it to, let's say, Svelte. So now this variable is storing the string Svelte. Okay, so now we can't actually see anything because we're not printing this variable anywhere. So in order to actually see it, you'll have to use your HTML. So I'm going to make a header tag and say hello. So right now you will only be able to see hello. And the idea of the component is whenever you type name into your HTML in this file, I can do it multiple times. Every time you have name, it's going to say Svelte. So you can see now it says hello Svelte Svelte. And I can always update this variable to say something else. So simply using the curly brackets and adding the variable name, you're able to use this variable anywhere. So now it says hello to HOTH XII. Okay, so this is what I mean by you're able to have reusable self-contained blocks of code that encapsulate all of these files. And then now you can also style it. So we've seen the script and we've seen HTML. We can also give it a style. So to add CSS, you just use a style tag. So I want to apply it to all of my headers, all of my header tags. So you simply do this. Okay, so what can you do with styles? You can give your text or anything color, font, size, and many more. So we're going to see an example of that. So let's say I want to change the color to gold. So we do color goldenrod. So now you see it's now a golden color. And let's say I want to give it a new font. Family. Oh, I need to capitalize this. Okay, this should change the font. We will check later. And then we can also resize the text. So if we want to make it very big. So this is going to depend on your screen resolution. So now you can see I gave it a new font and new size. So this shows how you can style your components in Svelte. Okay, and the last thing we want to look at is state. And what state is it helps you control your UI dynamically by using reactive variables. So that means whenever something changes, some data changes, it can also change the UI instead of having to do it manually in vanilla HTML. So we're going to see an example by making a cookie clicker. So we don't need any of this. I'll just delete it. So first, let's make a script. And the first thing we want to have in our cookie clicker is a variable called count to count how many times we clicked it. Alright, and then next, the thing we want to do is every time we click the cookie, we want this counter to go up. So let's make a function called increment. And what we want to do is whenever you call the increment function, it means you've clicked the cookie and you want the count to go up. So, or let's just do plus equals 1. So every time you increment it, your count value will increase. And now we need the cookie itself. And you can always use an image for this, but I'm just going to use a button. And what happens when you click the button is it should be in your HTML. Okay, and every time you click the button, you want it to call the increment function. So we're going to do onClick equals increment. Okay, so now we want to have some text inside the button, and the text we want would probably be how many times we clicked it. So we want it to display count. So we can say clicked count times. Okay, so now we should have a fully functional button. So whenever you click on the button, it'll increment count and it'll dynamically update it to the HTML here. So this is what I mean by when I say your data and your UI are bounded. So every time your data, which is your count, increments, the UI will also change automatically. So let's see here. So as you can see, every time I click count, count will increase. Okay, so now that we have a basic understanding of props and working with multiple files in a project, let's come back to the cookie clicker example. So we're going to finish building cookie clicker, and as you can see right now, we only have a button that tracks how many times you click it, and that's not very much like the game. In the game, you would be able to upgrade your cookie clicker. So for example, you spend 10 cookies and you're able to generate more cookies per click. So that way you're able to grow in this game. So to do that, we're just going to make a new variable called click power. So we're going to declare the variable the same way we declared count. That's just a local variable. And let's give it a default value of 1. So what this means is every time you click it, count will increment by the click power. So right now it's 1. So in order to upgrade the click power, we're going to need a separate function for that. So basically what we're trying to do is right now every click generates you plus, let's say plus 1 cookie and plus 1 and plus 1 and so on. And if your click power is 2, we want it to be plus 2 per click, plus 2, and so on. Okay, so in order for us to upgrade the click power, we're going to have to incur some sort of cost to the user. And our only currency is count, which is the count of cookies you have. So let's make that the cost of upgrading your click power. So in the same way we declare this increment function, we're also going to make an upgrade function to upgrade our click power. So we're just going to do the same thing as we did before, function upgrade. And in this function, the first thing we need to do is check if we have enough cookies to upgrade it. So let's say we want it to cost 10 cookies to upgrade. And once again, if you haven't checked out our workshop on HTML, CSS, and JS, I would strongly recommend it once again, because the rest of the project will rely heavily on those concepts. So assuming you know how this if statement works, we're going to continue with this check to see if we have enough cookies to upgrade it. So if it's we have more than 10 cookies, we can upgrade our click power by 1. And of course it's going to come at a cost, so we need to lose 10 cookies. And there we go. So basically every time this upgrade function is called, we're going to check if we have enough cookies. If you do, you're going to have your power upgraded by 1, and you're going to lose 10 cookies for this upgrade. Okay. But this is only just a function. We'll have to also attach it to a UI, which is like a button or something for the user to be able to interact with it. Because this is just a piece of logic, we need something for the user to see. So for that, we're just going to do, we're going to make a button. Actually, this should say on click. Keep in mind you need a colon. Unlike JavaScript, you need a colon between on and click, which is just a proper Svelte syntax. So in the same way we made our increment button, we're going to make our upgrade button. So every time we click it, we're going to upgrade, call the upgrade function, which is what we already implemented. And just to be a little more fancy, let's disable this button if you don't have enough cookies. So after this equality, we're going to give the condition, which is if you have less than 10 cookies, you're not able to upgrade it. So we don't even let you press this button. And inside this button, we need some sort of text to let the user know this is the upgrade button. So let's call it upgrade click power. And let's let them also be aware of the cost. So we're going to put in parentheses. Okay, so now the user knows this is an upgrade button that costs them 10 for each upgrade. And we should also have something to reflect their current upgrade power. So this is just going to be a simple paragraph tag saying click power is click power. Once again, we're using the power of dynamic variable so it updates the UI every time this click power is upgraded. So let's take a look at what we have. See, right now we can upgrade it when we have 10. And our click power is 2. So every time we click it, now you're getting 2 clicks. Okay, so now that we have that implemented, we would also want this to look more like a cookie. So we're going to use the same concept as we learned in the Svelte tutorial, which is we're going to make a new file. This is going to be our cookie component. And this is good for organization. If you have multiple different components, you can organize them into different files and just import them. So we're just going to implement the same concept as we learned in the Svelte tutorial. So just copying what they did before, but with our file names. And because they're in the same folder, we're just going to also do this. So now we're importing cookie from cookie.svelte. So let's see what we need in our cookie component. So our cookie is going to, first of all, need some logic. So we're going to give it a script tag. Specify the language as TypeScript. Okay, so now we're going to use the concept of props that we learned from the Svelte tutorial. So this is declaring count as a prop, and we're going to give a default value of 0, which we've seen before in the tutorial. And we're also going to take in an increment. This is a function, and we're also passing this in as a prop. And just a reminder of what a prop is, it's basically just some parameter that we're passing in from the parent to the child, so we have access to it, and so we can be able to use in our component. So with these props, let's see what we're going to do with it. So let's, instead of making a button, let's make it just a box, because I want to make my own custom cookie for it later. You'll see why in a second. So using the same logic as what we did here. So right now on click, we're just saying in click, we're using a button to track the cookie. but we want an actual cookie, so let's delete this. But we're implementing the exact same logic here, just with a little different UI. So we're going to make a div. It's the same concept. We're going to do, every time you click it, you want to increment it. So we're just copying the code that I deleted from the previous file to move it over here. And we're going to style it a little bit and give it a font size, let's say 50 pixels. Okay, and this is going to be what the cookie looks like. If I just write cookie, it's going to display the text cookie. But let's try to actually have a cookie, so I'll find a cookie emoji. Okay. So this is our cookie. And we also want the user to be able to see how many cookies they have. So just like in app.svelte, we showed them the click power. We're just also going to make a paragraph tag called cookies. And we're going to use the power of dynamic variables again. And we're going to pass in this prop here, which is count. So this is the count number of cookies. So that now we have this component implemented here. And once we import it in this file, which we already did, we can use this component over and over, passing in the parameters count and increment. So let's do just that. First of all, let's title the game. Let's call it like cookie clicker. Okay, and now we want to use the actual cookie component, and we need to use uppercase for all our custom components. So cookie, and let's remember which parameters we passed in. So we passed in a count and an increment. So it's going to be count and increment. Okay, so what this is going to do is we can make as many of these cookies as we want with the props count and increment. So let's see what this looks like in our game. So as you can see, we have the actual cookie. Every time we click on it, it increases. And when we reach 10, we'll be able to upgrade it. And now it's incrementing by 2 each time. So now that we have a fully functional cookie clicker game, let's look at one very quick concept about components. So not only is components more organized and easier to debug, but this code is also very easy to recycle. For example, if I want another identical component with the same attributes, all I have to do is copy this component, paste it over, and now I should be able to have 2 cookies with the exact same properties. So yeah, this really demonstrates the power of using components and being able to recycle code and organize your code, which is why I think Svelte is a great interface for you to get started with your hackathon projects. So hopefully through this tutorial you learned a little about Svelte, how to install it on your device, how to use it to make a simple cookie clicker game, and you learned some important concepts like props, dynamic variables, and components. And I hope that you'll be able to apply some of these concepts in your hackathon projects, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. Thank you for listening, and good luck.